Ash fell like grey snow across the shattered plains of Vareth 9. The horizon burned with the light of dying engines, where hulks of Drethry and Terran warships lay cracked open against the planet's crust. Lieutenant Mason Reeves stumbled through the debris field, the joints of his hard suit grinding with grit, his breath rasping in his helmet as atmospheric filters fought to keep out the toxic air. The war had ended in silence, no victory cry, no retreat order, only static and the cold hum of ruined machines. His HUD flickered between life signs and interference. No responses. His squad was gone. The dropship that had brought him down here was a molten crater a few clicks back, and the comm relay he'd been ordered to secure was now a twisted spike jutting out of the dirt. He was alone. Again. Reeve paused beside the shattered hull of a Drethry crawler, its crystalline armor humming faintly, like something breathing in its sleep. He crouched, prying open a panel with his combat knife, salvaging an intact power cell. The cell's blue light pulsed weakly, half a charge, maybe. Enough to keep his life support running through the next night cycle. He stuffed it into his pack and kept moving. The wind rose, carrying the metallic scent of ozone. Plasma storms brewed in the upper atmosphere, rolling like bruises across the sky. Every few seconds, lightning forked horizontally, illuminating rows of skeletal mechs and slagged weapon platforms. The battlefield looked less like a victory site and more like a graveyard of civilizations. Reeve tried not to think about how many Drethry and humans had died here for nothing. He checked his NAV map, blank, of course, and scanned for cover. A ridge of fractured obsidian rose ahead, jagged like the spine of some titanic beast. If he could get higher ground, maybe he could find a relay tower still transmitting. He started the climb, boots crunching through shards of glassy rock. At the top, he saw the wreckage of a Drethry carrier sprawled across the basin below, its hull split open and glowing from within. Even in ruin, the alien craft was beautiful, spires of translucent metal refracting the dim sunlight into ghostly colors. It was a cathedral built for war. He almost turned back. But his suit sensors caught something, an energy signature, faint but steady. Not from the carrier's core. Something smaller. Living. His pulse spiked. Could be a survivor, he muttered, though he didn't expect a human one. Still, a life sign was a life sign. Sliding down the ridge, he approached the wreck, his rifle raised out of habit more than hope. The entry bay had collapsed, but a breach in the hull gave him a narrow path inside. The corridors beyond were warped and melted, their crystalline walls bleeding a soft bioluminescent blue. He stepped carefully, each footfall echoing in the silence. The Drethry ships always unsettled him, alive somehow, like they mourned their own deaths. The signal grew stronger as he moved deeper. His helmet light swept over scorched armor fragments, psionic conduits shattered like veins of glass. Then he saw her. A Drethry warrior lay half buried beneath a fallen bulkhead, her exosuit flickering with fading runes of light. Her body was motionless, encased in black crystalline plates that had fused into the floor. The armor was unlike any he'd seen, ornate, edged with gold fractal lines that pulsed weakly, like a dying heart. He approached slowly, kneeling beside her. Her face, if the Drethry could be said to have one, was visible through the translucent helm. Smooth, pale like moonstone, with eyes dimly glowing violet beneath a web of fractures. She looked, peaceful, in a way that disturbed him. A killer asleep. His suit AI whispered, life signs detected. Neural activity minimal. Motor function, non-responsive. Reeve exhaled. You're still alive. Damn. He hesitated. Helping her would be madness. Drethry didn't take prisoners, they dissected them. If she woke, she'd kill him without hesitation. But the thought of walking away twisted his stomach. He remembered the screams of his squad on the comms, the silence afterward. He'd promised himself once that he wouldn't leave another living being to die alone. He braced his boots and tried to lift the bulkhead. It didn't budge. The Drethry armor had fused with it, melded through the heat of the crash. He gritted his teeth, activated his suit's servos, and pushed again. The slab shifted a few inches. He heard a sharp intake of air, a sound that wasn't his. Her eyes flickered open, faint but aware. She stared at him, and even half-conscious, that gaze was like a blade. Her lips moved, her voice, though weak, resonated inside his skull more than his ears. "Human, leave me." "Not happening," he said, panting, straining to wedge a lever beneath the debris. "You'll suffocate if I do." "Better, that." Her psionic tone faltered, static in his head. "I am unworthy." He ignored her. With a final heave, he freed her upper body. She gasped, the glow in her armor flaring before dimming again. He quickly patched his medkit into one of the cracked conduits along her neck joint, the interface sparking in protest. His HUD screamed warnings, unauthorized cross-species sync. He overrode them all. Her pulse stabilized. Neural activity rose slightly. Then the medkit fused to her armor, lights pulsing in sync with her heart. Reeve slumped beside her, exhausted. "There. You're stable." She turned her head weakly, eyes narrowing. "You defy the war." "War's over," he muttered. "At least here. You risk contamination. Execution." Her tone was colder now, though her body trembled. "Why?" He looked at her for a long moment, then at the endless field of wrecks outside the cracked hull. "Because someone should survive this," he said quietly. "Even if it's not me." Her gaze lingered, uncertain. Then her eyelids closed again, her breathing shallow but steady. Reeve sat in silence, the storm outside beginning to howl against the broken walls. He didn't know if he'd just saved an enemy, or doomed himself. Somewhere far above, lightning illuminated the battlefield, and for an instant, he saw the reflection of her armor shimmer like a dying star. The storm had raged for hours. Outside the shattered hull, plasma winds screamed across the plain, turning the ash into swirling curtains of blue fire. Inside, Reeve crouched beside a makeshift shelter he'd built from the wreckage, 2 bent plates and a thermal tarp, listening to the armor-clad Drethry breathe in slow, shallow intervals. Her vitals flickered across his HUD, each pulse a quiet reminder that he'd tied his fate to something he barely understood. He'd moved her as best he could, using a cut-down grav harness from his field kit to slide her body away from the unstable bulkhead. The armor was heavier than anything human-made, and the neural conduits that lined her spine pulsed faintly with bioelectric light. Whatever life support system kept her alive was ancient and alien, half organic, half machine, and far beyond his comprehension. He had no idea if she'd live through the night. Reeve checked the perimeter sensors he'd planted in the debris. Static again. The electromagnetic interference from the storm made long-range scans useless. He was blind, deaf, and stranded on a battlefield crawling with scavenger drones and worse, automated sentinels still following dead orders. He glanced at the Drethry warrior, at the intricate sigils etched into her armor's chest plate. Each rune shimmered faintly in rhythm with her breathing. He didn't need to read the language to recognize what she was: command rank, decorated, lethal. "You sure picked the wrong place to die," he muttered, feeding another charge cell into the thermal pack. The warmth bled through the air, tinged with the faint metallic scent of Drethry nanites evaporating from her armor. A low sound came from her throat, half growl, half breath. Reeve turned sharply. Her eyes opened again, faint light glowing beneath the fractured visor. She stared at him, unfocused, then scanned the wreckage around them. "Human soldier," she said, or rather, the sound pressed into his mind like a whisper just behind his thoughts. "Why am I not dead?" He lowered his rifle but didn't move closer. "Because I dragged you out before the ship collapsed." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, as if weighing his words. "You tampered with my armor." "I kept you alive," he said evenly. "You were fused to the deck. Your systems were failing. Her eyes flared brighter. You invaded sacred synthesis. A human hand defiled Drethery bond steel. The tone wasn't anger so much as disbelief, a noble's outrage softened by exhaustion. You violated. I saved your damn life, he interrupted, his voice rising. You're welcome. She went still, studying him. The flickering lights on her chest plate dimmed, her breathing slowed. Death was the proper end. Now. I am nothing. Her voice faltered, turning inward. The assembly will erase my name for this weakness. Reeve stared at her, incredulous. You think they'd rather you die than be saved? Her head tilted slightly. To live paralyzed is dishonor. To be rescued by a human, the last word carried venom and sorrow both. Is worse. He let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. You Drethery really don't make mercy easy. Her gaze cut toward him again, sharper now, alive with faint psionic tension. Mercy is corruption. Survival without worth. She tried to move, but her limbs trembled violently, and the armor's inner lattice sparked in protest. Release me. I will end this. Yeah, not gonna happen, Reeve said, crouching beside her as the sensors pinged faintly, movement on the far perimeter. Probably debris, he told himself. Probably. You can't even lift your arm. She bared her teeth, an expression oddly human in its fury. Then end it for me, human. He met her glare, steady. No. I've done enough killing for one lifetime. They stayed like that for a long moment, the storm outside pounding against the hull, the air between them alive with mutual contempt and something unspoken. Finally, her expression softened, just slightly. Your people are strange. Yeah, he said. We get that a lot. Silence followed. Reeve checked his ammo, recalibrated his broken comlink, anything to avoid the strange weight of her stare. When he looked back, she was watching the storm through a gap in the hull, eyes reflecting the flickering blue light. I was Seraphine Kothar, she murmured. Warlord of the Ninth Spire. Commander of the Kaloth Front. My name will be dust by dawn. Reeve hesitated. Seraphine, he repeated, the alien syllables heavy on his tongue. I'm Mason. Lieutenant Mason Reeve, Terran Coalition. Her eyes flicked to him again. Your rank means nothing here. Guess not, he said with a faint grin. Just habit. Another tremor rippled through the ground. The storm was shifting, he could feel the magnetic pressure rising, the kind that preceded a plasma front. He rose to his feet. We need to move deeper into the wreck. This section's going to blow if the storm intensifies. She didn't answer. Her armor emitted a low hum, self-repair subroutine struggling and failing. Reeve knelt again. Can you walk? No, the word was simple, absolute. I feel, the void where strength was. The psionic lattice is severed. He nodded grimly. Then I'll carry you. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You will not. He ignored her protest, activated the grav harness, and began strapping it beneath her torso. She tried to resist, but her limbs wouldn't obey. The armor shuddered with every movement, its faint hum turning into a soft whine of protest. You shame yourself, she hissed. Your species would call you traitor. Wouldn't be the first time, he muttered, tightening the final clamp. Hold still. When he lifted, the harness engaged, taking most of her weight. The Drethery armor floated a few centimeters off the ground, like a dark phantom bound by light. Reeve steadied it with one hand, guiding her toward the corridor. As they moved deeper, sparks rained from the ceiling. The Drethery ship groaned under the pressure of the storm, each vibration echoing like a dying heartbeat. Seraphine's voice brushed against his thoughts again, quieter now. You risk your life for your enemy. What do you gain? He didn't look back. Maybe I just don't like watching people die alone. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, almost inaudibly, "You are a fool, human." "Yeah," Reeve said as another blast rocked the corridor. "But I'm your fool for now." They descended into the darkness, the roar of the storm fading behind them, leaving only the pulse of alien light and the slow, uneven rhythm of two survivors who had no reason left to trust each other, but no choice except to try. The storm finally broke at dawn, leaving the battlefield wrapped in a haze of glowing dust. Reeve had found an intact cargo chamber deep within the wreck, its walls thick enough to muffle the shriek of the winds. A few emergency lights still burned along the ceiling, painting everything in cold amber tones. He'd turned the place into a temporary camp, power cells arranged in a circle, a cracked Drethery generator humming weakly, his helmet off for the first time in days. The air was barely breathable, but it was better than the silence outside. Seraphine lay against a sloped bulkhead, her armor's inner lights pulsing like embers fading in and out. Her eyes were open now, clear but distant, studying the patterns of light that played across the walls. The grav harness still kept her suspended just above the floor, weightless and rigid, her limbs unmoving. She had not spoken since the night before. Reeve crouched near the generator, soldering a patch cable from his medkit to one of the power conduits. The sparks danced across his gloves. "You Drethery sure make things complicated," he muttered. "I've seen starship cores easier to repair than your life support suit." Her gaze flicked toward him, voice threading into his thoughts again, calm but cold. "You desecrate what you cannot comprehend. My armor is part of me. I'm not desecrating anything. I'm keeping you alive." He tightened the cable. "Your vitals were dropping. You've got microfractures in your spinal node, and your psionic lattice is misfiring like a broken circuit." "I'm improvising." "Improvisation," she repeated, almost with disdain. "That is what makes your species dangerous. You act before you understand." He looked up, meeting her glowing eyes. "And you Drethery, do nothing until it's too late." Her silence was sharp enough to cut through the air. For a moment, Reeve thought she might lash out, if she still could. Instead, she turned her gaze away, the faint pulse of her armor dimming. "We act with purpose. You act with impulse. That is why this war began." Reeve leaned back against the wall, exhaustion heavy in his shoulders. "Yeah, I've heard the propaganda. Humanity spreads like a disease, no discipline, no order. But tell me, how's all that purpose working out for you?" He gestured at the shattered ceiling above them. "Looks like we're both losing." Her voice was softer now. "We were not meant to lose." The shard assembly promised, she stopped, as if the words themselves were forbidden. "They promised we would ascend beyond flesh." Sounds like they lied. Her eyes narrowed. "You would not understand." He didn't respond. The hum of the generator filled the silence, steady and low. Reeve adjusted the medkit's neural link. When the system confirmed sync, a faint shimmer passed through the Drethery armor, and the temperature around them shifted slightly. "There," he said. "That should stabilize your systems. You'll feel it soon." Almost immediately, Seraphine's fingers twitched. It was barely visible, but Reeve saw it, the smallest spark of motion since he'd found her. Her breath quickened, her eyes widening. "What did you do?" "Neural medkit," he said. "Human tech. Designed to crosslink with any bioelectric field. It's feeding your nervous matrix just enough current to keep the connections alive. You interfaced human technology with Drethery synthesis." Her voice sharpened, disbelief layered over fear. "That could destroy me. Or save you," he countered. "So far, you're not dead. I'm calling that a win." Her armor trembled slightly, as if alive under her skin. "The assembly forbade such contact. Our essence is sacred. To merge with alien machinery is heresy," he finished for her. "Yeah, I figured that out." She went still, eyes closing. For a long time, she said nothing, only breathing through shallow pain. Then, quietly, why would you risk it? What are you trying to prove? Reeve stared at her, then at the cracked Drethry symbol etched into the wall behind her head. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. He sighed. Because I'm tired of orders. Tired of killing people I don't hate for reasons no one remembers. If saving you spits in the face of everyone who thinks this war still matters, then maybe it's worth it. Her gaze softened in a way he didn't expect. You think mercy will end a 1,000-year creed of vengeance? No, he said. But it's a start. A flicker of energy rippled through the floor, a distant explosion outside. Reeve stiffened, checking his scanner. The signal came from a few kilometers east. A search drone, likely human. He swallowed. They're sweeping the area. If they find us together, they will kill you, Seraphine said flatly. Your commanders will not tolerate fraternization with the enemy. And yours? He asked. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. They would erase me. Reeve stood, pacing. Then we're in agreement. We stay hidden. You cannot hide forever, human. He turned back to her, a grin flickering despite himself. I'm an engineer. Hiding in broken machines is kind of my specialty. For the first time, a faint sound escaped her, something between a sigh and a laugh, though it vanished almost immediately. Her armor glowed brighter, the faintest signs of returning strength. She studied him in silence, the human who'd refused to leave her to die, the stranger who'd bound alien flesh to forbidden tech. You risk everything for nothing, she said softly. Reeve shrugged. I'll take nothing over watching another world burn. Another tremor shook the wreck, dust falling from the ceiling. He checked the stabilizers on the generator and turned toward the entrance. If I can fix one of the comm arrays, we might find a way off this rock. You'll stay here, conserve energy. Her voice followed him, calm but edged with warning. If you die, your mercy dies with you. He looked back at her. Then I guess I better not die. As he disappeared through the corridor, Seraphine watched the last trace of human light fade into the gloom. Alone, she stared at her reflection in the broken wall, half warrior, half experiment, and felt something unfamiliar stir beneath the pain. Not gratitude. Not yet. But something close to doubt. And for the first time since her fall, Seraphine Cathar feared the silence between heartbeats. Reeve's boots crunched softly on the glassy floor as he returned to the cargo bay, his armor coated in a layer of fine silver dust. The storm had subsided, but the silence that followed felt heavier. He had spent the last hour scouring the outer wreckage for a comm relay, dodging the half-functional drones that still wandered aimlessly, powered by dying command codes. His pulse was steady now, but his thoughts weren't. Every step toward the Drethry warrior felt like crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Seraphine was awake when he entered. The faint glow of her armor painted her face in shades of violet and gold, eyes sharp again, too sharp. She had been watching the doorway, waiting. You were gone, she said, her telepathic tone colder than before. You risked exposure. Had to find food, he said, tossing a ration pack onto the floor. And see if any systems were transmitting. No luck. Her gaze flicked to the ration pack like it was a foreign weapon. You humans consume processed dust and call it nourishment. It beats starving, he replied, tearing the pack open and taking a bite. I'd offer you some, but something tells me your kind doesn't go for protein paste. Her silence was answer enough. Reeve sat down across from her, leaning against a support beam, feeling the exhaustion settle deep in his bones. For a few moments, only the hum of the generator filled the air. Then, softly, she said, you should not have returned. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? If you had left, she said, eyes narrowing, you could still live. My people will come for the wreckage soon. They will find me, and they will kill you for touching what is sacred. Reeve let out a breath that was half a laugh. Then I guess we better hope they don't find us. Her gaze hardened. You misunderstand. I will tell them. The words hung between them, cold and deliberate. Reeve's head lifted slowly. You turned me in. After everything? I owe you nothing, she said. You interfered with my body, my armor, my spirit. You have bound me to dishonor. The assembly will demand atonement. Then they'll get it from me, not you, he said, pushing to his feet. You think I saved you for thanks? I did it because you were dying, because no one deserves to be left in the dirt. Her eyes flared brighter, her voice a low hiss that vibrated through his mind. We Drethari choose death before disgrace. You have stolen that choice from me. He stared at her, anger rising like heat. You're welcome, then, for still being alive enough to complain. The air crackled between them. For a heartbeat, the lights flickered, and Reeve felt a psychic pulse press against his mind, sharp, invasive, like a spear made of thought. He stumbled back, clutching his head. What the hell was that? Her voice was quiet but heavy. A warning. Do not think mercy makes us allies. Reeve's breath came hard through his teeth. Then stop acting like I'm your jailer. He turned away, pacing the edge of the bay. The Drethari's armor still glowed faintly, the runes pulsing faster as her psionic field stirred. She was regaining control, maybe even strength. He should have been relieved. Instead, it filled him with dread. You know, he said finally, it's funny. For someone who's supposed to be a legendary warrior, you're doing a hell of a job pretending you're already dead. Her eyes snapped to him, the glow inside them cutting through the gloom. You dare. Yeah, I dare, he shot back. Because I've seen soldiers with half your strength crawl through hell to keep breathing. You talk about honor, but all I see is someone too proud to fight for her own life. She went still, the light around her dimming again. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, almost whispering, you think life is a gift to be clung to. For us, it is a burden to be proven worthy of. Reeve leaned forward, his voice low. Maybe it's both. Silence again. The tension hung like static between them, charged and unspoken. Then she turned her gaze downward. Your defiance is inefficient, she murmured. Yet, it stirs something I cannot name. Reeve blinked. I'll take that as a compliment. It was not one. He smirked faintly. Didn't think so. Outside, thunder rumbled again. The sky's dim light filtered through cracks in the hull, illuminating the jagged scars across Seraphine's armor. She followed his gaze and said quietly, you cannot repair what you broke. My psionic lattice is fractured beyond your means. Maybe, he said, but I know where I might find someone, or something, that can. Her eyes narrowed. Explain. I caught a fragment of a signal, Reeve said. Not human. Some kind of Drethari data ping coming from the southern ridge. Could be a relay, maybe even one of your AI nodes. If there's a chance it can help fix your neural system, I'm going. She stared at him for a long moment, suspicion and curiosity mingling. You would risk your life for my restoration. I'm already risking it keeping you alive. Might as well see it through. Her jaw tightened. You are either a fool or a zealot. Probably both, he said, gathering his tools. Rest while you can. I'll move out once the winds settle. As he turned to leave, her voice brushed against his mind one last time, quieter than before. Human. He looked back. Yeah. If you succeed, she said slowly, as if each word cost her something, I will owe you a debt that cannot be spoken aloud. He gave a tired grin. I'll settle for not getting vaporized when your people show up. Her eyes flickered once, almost like amusement, before fading back to cold indifference. Do not mistake gratitude for friendship. Wouldn't dream of it, he said, stepping into the corridor. As the door hissed shut behind him, the hum of her armor filled the silence again. Seraphine closed her eyes, letting the pulse of alien light wash through her damaged nerves. She could feel his energy still lingering, reckless, human, alive, and for the first time since her fall, the thought of survival did not taste like shame. The ridge was a jagged scar across the horizon, a line of black rock carved by fire and centuries of war. Reeve moved through the ash fog with his rifle slung low, the air dense enough to taste metal. His HUD flickered every few seconds, struggling against the radiation storm brewing above. Behind him, a low rumble echoed from the distance. The sound of the wreck shifting as the wind tore through it again. He didn't look back. The signal he traced pulsed faintly in his scanner, a rhythmic tremor of energy that didn't match any human frequency. Drethery. It bled through static like a heartbeat, leading him across the ridge toward what the map called a dead zone. The last place any sane person would go. He crouched near a ridge outcrop, pulling out a cracked drone relay from his pack. The wind screamed past, dragging trails of dust behind it. He powered up the relay, hoping for a stable feed. The device sputtered to life, the screen flickering with a cluster of coordinates, then a glyph appeared, unfamiliar and sharp-edged. Drethery script. Reeve didn't know the words, but the rhythm of the signal matched the glyph's pulse perfectly. Then, behind him, a soft hum. He turned, weapon half-raised. Seraphine stood at the edge of the slope, her armor now fully lit again, the runes burning with violet light. She shouldn't have been walking, hours ago, she could barely move. Yet she was upright, poised, every step measured as if she had never fallen. The silver of her plating caught the dying sun, and for a second she looked less like a soldier and more like something sacred. "You weren't supposed to follow," Reeve said. "I was not meant to remain behind," she answered, her voice threading through his mind like distant thunder. "You would not have reached this place alive." He lowered his rifle, but not his guard. "Your system was barely stable. If you push too hard." "I am not fragile," she cut in. "Your machine restored more than you realize. The lattice remembers itself." Reeve scanned her armor, noticing the faint flicker in her psionic nodes. "You're regenerating." "Adapting," she corrected. "As are you." He gave a short laugh. "You don't know the half of it." Together, they moved down the ridge toward the signal source. The ground was littered with debris. Broken Drethery pylons, fragments of crystal conduits, bones of metal and light. The air shimmered faintly around them, alive with invisible static. Seraphine moved with increasing confidence, her presence commanding the terrain itself, while Reeve followed close behind, glancing between the scanner and her shifting glow. They reached a canyon opening, half-collapsed, its mouth sealed by a shimmering field of energy. The signal pulsed strongest here. Reeve stepped forward, testing the barrier with his glove. Sparks snapped against the fabric, repelling him. "Psionic containment," Seraphine said. "A vault. It holds something of our kind." He looked at her. "A relay?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "No. A conscience." Reeve frowned. "You mean, like an AI?" "More," she said, stepping closer. "A fragment of the assembly itself. A shard of our collective mind. It sleeps beneath this shield. Then that's what's powering the signal." She nodded once. "It calls to any who still live." Reeve hesitated. "If it's alive, it might not like finding a human standing over it." "It will not see you," she said. "Unless I let it." Her hand rose, palm glowing. The barrier rippled, bending around her aura. Light spilled across the canyon like liquid glass as she stepped forward, chanting in a low, harmonic tone. The field split open with a shudder, revealing a deep chamber within. Reeve followed, the air inside heavy and electric. The interior was vast, a cathedral of metal veins and hanging crystal, all humming faintly. At the center hovered a sphere the size of a human head, covered in runes that moved like living code. Its light pulsed in time with Seraphine's heartbeat. She approached it slowly, reverently. "This is what remains of the shard assembly," she said. "It is broken." Reeve watched as the sphere trembled, flickering erratically. "Can you fix it?" Her gaze didn't leave the relic. "It does not wish to be fixed." Before he could speak, the sphere pulsed once, hard enough to shake the ground. Reeve stumbled back, shielding his face. A voice, many voices, echoed through the chamber in a chorus of layered sound. It was language, but beyond words, pure thought cascading through both of them. Seraphine stiffened, her armor flaring in response. "They know," she whispered. "They see what you've done." Reeve gritted his teeth. "And what's their verdict?" Her eyes went dark. "That I am tainted." The air grew colder. The sphere's glow turned crimson, its pulse quickening. A tendril of light lashed outward, striking Seraphine across the chest. She screamed, an unearthly sound, and dropped to one knee. The runes on her armor spasmed, flickering between patterns. Reeve raised his rifle instinctively, firing a burst at the sphere, but the shots passed harmlessly through. "Stop," she cried. "It feeds on psionic energy, your bullets mean nothing." Reeve dropped his weapon, diving forward. He grabbed her arm, feeling the heat through her armor as energy surged through her body. "Then tell me what to do." She gasped, her voice ragged. "Break the connection." The relay node, above. Reeve looked up, saw a cluster of crystal rods suspended from the ceiling, pulsing in sync with the sphere. He climbed onto the wrecked scaffolding, bracing himself against the quake, and fired a shot into the central node. The crystals shattered, light bursting like glass under pressure. The sphere shrieked, its glow imploding inward, and then, silence. When the light faded, Seraphine lay motionless on the floor, smoke rising from her armor. Reeve dropped beside her, heart pounding. "Hey! Stay with me. Come on." Her eyes flickered open, faint but alive. "You disobeyed the assembly." "Yeah," he said, voice rough. "Add it to the list." She stared up at him for a long moment, then whispered, "They will not forgive this." He forced a grin. "Then we better make sure they can't find us." She blinked slowly, something like disbelief, or admiration, passing through her gaze. "You are impossible." "Damn right," he muttered, pulling her to her feet. "Now move. Before that thing wakes up again." They staggered out of the vault, the air outside biting cold. Above them, the storm had begun again, streaks of light tearing across the sky like burning veins. Reeve glanced at the ridge, then at her. "Whatever that was," he said, "it knows you're alive." Her voice was quiet, but resolute. "Then it will come for me. For us." Reeve nodded once. "Let it." The storm had not stopped for 3 days. It howled across the ravaged plains, tearing at what little remained of Verith Ix's surface. The sky was a bruise-colored smear of ionized gas and drifting ash, and through it the wreckage of ships, human and Drethari alike, stood like monuments to extinction. Reeve trudged through mud that glowed faintly from radiation, his breath echoing inside his cracked helmet. Behind him, Seraphine walked in silence, her armor dimmed to conserve power, her gait heavy but controlled. They had not spoken since leaving the vault. The air between them was tense, coiled with exhaustion and unspoken questions. Every few kilometers, Reeve checked his scanner. The Drethari signal had gone dead, but a new one had taken its place. Narrowband, encrypted, and pulsing in intervals of 5. Human military code. "We're being tracked," he muttered, lowering the device. "I told you your people would come," Seraphine said quietly. "Humans do not abandon their dead. Or their deserters." Reeve shot her a look. "I'm not a deserter." You left your command, your war, your creed. You saved me instead of finishing your mission. Maybe I made the only part of it that still mattered. Her gaze lingered on him for a moment before she looked away. You mistake sentiment for strength. Maybe you mistake pride for weakness. They walked in silence again, the sound of the storm filling the space between them. Then the scanner began to chirp faster, 2 signals, approaching from opposite directions. Reeve froze. Damn it. Both sides. Seraphine closed her eyes, focusing. The faint violet light from her armor pulsed once. Drethery strike craft, 4 signatures. The humans, ground transports. They will reach us within minutes. He cursed under his breath. They're converging on the same coordinates. Us. They mean to claim me, she said flatly. And erase you. Not happening. He reached into his pack, pulling out 2 power cells and a signal scrambler. We're going to vanish before they get eyes on us. Impossible, she said. He grinned faintly. You keep saying that. They ducked into the remains of a downed cruiser, its hull half buried under slag and dust. Reeve knelt beside a shattered console, wiring the scrambler into its broken core. Sparks jumped across his gloves. If I can hijack the transponder field, we can create ghost signals, make them chase phantoms while we slip out under the storm. Seraphine stood guard near the hatch, her senses sweeping the perimeter. Her voice was low. They will not be fooled for long. Long enough, he said. The console flared to life, flickering with static. Outside, lightning slashed across the horizon, briefly illuminating a Drethery gunship descending through the clouds. Its thrusters painted the storm in molten gold. Moments later, the ground shuddered with the arrival of human transports from the north. Reeve adjusted the field strength. Come on, the ghost signals bloomed across the radar, scattering like sparks. The approaching fleet split, each chasing a false trail deeper into the wasteland. For a brief, fragile moment, the sky above them was empty again. Seraphine exhaled, the tension leaving her shoulders. You risked discovery for deception. It's called survival, he said, disconnecting the device. Before she could respond, a faint vibration rippled through the hull. Both turned. The air inside the wreck grew heavy, humming with resonance. A voice, distant and distorted, echoed through the ship's bones. Seraphine Cathar. Her name. Spoken not in sound, but in thought, sharp, commanding, and unmistakably Drethery. She staggered, clutching her temple. They found the shard, she whispered. It speaks through me. Fight it, Reeve said, grabbing her arm. Don't let them control you. Her eyes burned bright violet. You do not understand. The assembly's reach is not bound by distance. It touches what it made. Then I'll break it, he said, drawing a neural stabilizer from his belt. You taught me enough about your systems, I can jam the signal. She hissed through her teeth. If you sever the link carelessly, it could kill me. He hesitated for a fraction of a second. I'll take that risk if it keeps you alive. Your logic is flawed. Welcome to being human. He pressed the device to the junction at her neck. The stabilizer flared, its charge sparking across her armor. She cried out, her body convulsing as psionic energy bled into the air in waves. The ground trembled beneath them, dust swirling like a storm inside the wreck. Then, silence. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. The glow in her eyes dimmed. The voice is gone, she said hoarsely. Reeve sat back, sweat dripping from his brow. Good. Then we. The hull screamed as something massive tore through it. Metal bent and split open above them, a Drethery hunter drone descending through the breach, its carapace gleaming black. Energy weapons glowed along its sides. Move! Reeve shouted. They dove for cover as the drone fired, plasma bolts slicing through the wreck. Reeve rolled behind a shattered bulkhead, returning fire with his rifle. The rounds pinged off the drone's shield harmlessly. Seraphine rose, energy crackling at her fingertips. You cannot harm it. It feeds on kinetic force. Then what's the plan? She stepped forward, spreading her arms. We burn it from within. Her armor ignited with light, arcs of psionic current spiraling outward. The air thickened, trembling under the force. She unleashed a pulse that tore through the drone's shield, fracturing it like glass. Reeve fired again, this time hitting exposed conduits. The drone exploded, shards of burning metal scattering across the ruins. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Reeve leaned against the wall, chest heaving. You're bleeding energy again. I am beyond repair, she murmured, though her voice carried no fear. The assembly will not stop. Nor will your soldiers. They will both come. He met her gaze. Then we find somewhere they can't. She tilted her head, curious. You would run with me. Knowing what I am. I've seen what you are, he said quietly. That's enough. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of approaching engines, both human and Drethry closing in once more. Reeve slung his rifle, offering her his hand. We move now, or we die here. She hesitated, then took it. Her grip was cold, strong. Together, they stepped out into the storm, two fugitives walking toward a horizon that wanted them both dead. They reached the canyon by nightfall, though night meant little on Vareth 9. The sky was a sheet of dull red cloud, pulsing faintly from the storms above. The ground glowed with veins of phosphor dust, each step kicking up a pale luminescence. Reeve led the way, rifle slung across his back, his scanner flickering with irregular signals. Behind him, Seraphine followed in silence, her armor dimmed almost to black. She had spoken little since the drone attack. Every time he glanced back, her face looked carved from steel. The scanner pinged again, low frequency, deep underground. That's it, he said. It's coming from beneath this ridge. Seraphine knelt, running her palm over the stone. The air shimmered around her hand, and the rock began to ripple like water. There is a structure below. Ancient. Pre-Drethry. Older than your people? Reeve asked. Her eyes flared faintly. Older than both our species. A low vibration rolled through the canyon as the ground cracked open, forming a narrow descent spiraling into darkness. Without hesitation, she stepped down first. Reeve followed, the air growing colder with each level. The walls were lined with faintly glowing sigils, neither human nor Drethry, symbols alive with motion. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with pillars of glass and stone. In the center stood a device, circular, suspended above the floor by invisible force, humming softly. Reeve's HUD stuttered as it came online, feeding impossible readings. Radiation levels are normal, he said. But the energy signature, hell, it's rewriting itself. Seraphine approached the ring, her voice hushed. The Valis core. I thought it was myth. What does it do? She looked at him, her expression unreadable. It restores what is lost. He frowned. You mean, healing? Not merely healing, she said, tracing a hand along the air. It rebuilds the neural lattice of any living being, even those beyond repair. It can remake thought itself. This was the Assembly's secret before the war. They feared it. Reeve stepped closer, studying the machine. So this is what the war's been about. Not conquest. Control. Knowledge, she corrected. To command resurrection is to command eternity. My people would kill to possess it. Yours would too. He crouched near the base, examining the conduits. It's still active. Low power, maybe running on geothermal reserves. We could. You would not survive contact with it, she interrupted. The core feeds on consciousness. It must be guided. You mean, by you? She nodded once. My systems can interface with the lattice. If I succeed, it could restore what I have lost. If I fail, it will erase me. Reeve straightened, jaw tight. There has to be another way. There isn't, she said quietly. This was my destiny, human. I was born from war, and now I return to its source. He looked at her for a long time, then at the core's pulsing light. If you go in there, I'm staying with you. Her gaze softened, a rare flicker of something almost human passing across her features. You would die. Maybe. But you won't face it alone. She studied him, then turned back to the machine. You are a fool. Been called worse. She reached out, placing her hands on the core. The light swelled instantly, washing the room in blinding gold. Reeve stepped back, shielding his face. Seraphine's armor split open along its seams, releasing threads of energy that connected her body to the device. The ground trembled. Streams of memory and data filled the air, flashing images, battles, faces, entire lifetimes. Reeve felt his mind brush against something vast and ancient, a tide of consciousness so immense it nearly crushed him. Then he heard her voice, inside his skull. I see now, the truth. What truth? He shouted, though sound barely existed here anymore. The assembly did not create us to protect the galaxy. They made us to cage it. To keep this power buried. They slaughtered worlds to hide their failure. The core's light surged, flickering violently. Reeve felt heat on his skin, pain lancing through every nerve. Sarah, disconnect. It's killing you. No, she said. It's freeing me. Her body convulsed, light pouring from every seam in her armor. The core roared like a living thing. Reeve forced himself forward, grabbing her arm. Sparks leapt between them, his suit alarms screaming. You're going to burn out. She turned her head, eyes glowing white. Then I burn with purpose. With one final burst, she unleashed a wave of psionic force that shattered the chamber's walls. The ground split open, energy cascading upward in a column that pierced the canyon above. Reeve was thrown back, slamming into the rock. When he opened his eyes, the core's light had faded to a faint pulse. Seraphine lay at its center, motionless. He crawled to her, pulling off his glove and pressing his hand to her chest plate. A heartbeat. Weak, but steady. The glow beneath her skin had changed, no longer violet, but soft silver. She stirred, her voice faint. I remember. What did it do to you? I am whole, she whispered. And I am not the same. Before he could speak, his calm crackled to life for the first time in weeks. A human frequency. Lieutenant Reeve, this is Command Unit Series. We have your signal. Extraction in progress. Hold your position. He looked at her, then back at the flickering light of the core. They found us. Her eyes opened fully now, silver and calm. So did mine. The canyon above shook with distant thunder, ship engines, Drethary and human both, descending through the storm. The Valis core hummed once more, as if aware of what was coming. Reeve rose to his feet, rifle ready, while Seraphine stood beside him, her movements sharp, sure, alive. They'll kill us both, he said. They'll try, she answered. The light from the core brightened again, reflecting in her eyes like the dawn of something terrible and new. This war ends here, she whispered. Or it ends with us. Reeve tightened his grip on the rifle and took his place beside her, staring up at the mouth of the canyon as the storm opened, revealing descending fire. The first shadows touched the ground, and neither of them moved. Not fear. Not surrender. Just the calm before destruction. The canyon burned. Ships tore through the sky like knives, the thunder of their descent shaking the ground beneath Reeve's boots. He could see the outlines of Drethry gunships weaving between the clouds, their golden lances cutting through the smoke. From the opposite horizon, human dropcraft streaked toward the same point, engines howling. Between them, the remnants of the storm churned, a maelstrom of dust, lightning, and war returning to the dead planet one last time. Seraphine stood at the edge of the core's chamber, her armor now alive with light that pulsed in rhythm with the machine beneath them. The silver glow from her body bled into the ground, tracing patterns in the rock like living circuitry. Reeve approached her, wiping the ash from his visor. "They'll be here in minutes," he said. "We can't fight both sides." "We don't need to fight them," she said quietly. "We need to show them the truth. Truth doesn't mean much when everyone's armed." She turned her head toward him, the light from her eyes dimming slightly. "Then let it mean something to us." Before he could respond, the first explosions echoed from above. Human artillery shells cratered the ridge, sending molten rock flying. The Drethry answered in kind, streams of plasma carving lines of fire across the horizon. Reeve dragged her behind the core's pedestal as debris rained down around them. "Your people are slaughtering mine," he said. "And mine are doing the same. You really think there's any truth that can fix that?" "I think," she said, voice low, "that they fear what they do not understand. And fear is a weapon sharper than any blade." She reached out and touched the core. It responded instantly, its surface rippling with light. The vibrations deepened, spreading through the cavern. The walls themselves began to hum, resonating with her energy. Reeve stepped back, shielding his face from the brightness. "What are you doing?" "Finishing what we started," she said. "If they wish to destroy me, they will see what I truly am." The ground split open as streams of energy spiraled outward, climbing through the cracks toward the sky. The canyon above erupted in pillars of light that pierced the storm, cutting through the battle raging overhead. Ships halted midair, sensors shorting out, engines faltering. Both human and Drethry forces drifted in the air like stunned insects. Reeve stumbled forward. "You're broadcasting. You're linking the core to every system in orbit." Her voice filled the chamber and the air beyond, echoing through every frequency. "They will see. They will remember what they've done." Images flickered through the energy field, visions bleeding into every ship's comms feed. Entire fleets watched as the truth unfolded, the Assembly's experiments, the human alliance's complicity, the erasure of entire colonies to keep the core buried. Both sides were exposed in perfect symmetry, each as corrupt as the other. Reeve's helmet buzzed with interference, then went dead. He tore it off and stared at her. "You're killing your link. You'll burn out your neural lattice." Her body trembled, arcs of light tearing through her armor. "I was built to serve lies. Better to die telling the truth." He stepped toward her, gripping her shoulders. The contact sent electricity through his arms, searing pain racing up his spine, but he didn't let go. "You don't have to die for this. There's another way." She met his eyes, the light flickering in them like a fading star. "You would save me again. Every damn time." Her hand lifted, resting against his chest plate. "Then share it," she whispered. "If I cannot survive, let the core see through you." Before he could speak, she pressed her forehead to his. The world dissolved into light. He felt the core surge through him, memories not his own flooding into his mind, her training, her victories, her fall. He saw the Assembly's genesis, the shaping of her kind, and the quiet horror of their purpose. And beneath it all, he felt her, every thought, every fracture, every defiant spark of life. His vision filled with galaxies spinning, data streams twisting into human faces, Drethry eyes, worlds burning and rebuilding. He was everywhere at once, and then the core shifted. The pain vanished. He felt himself stabilize, his mind balancing against hers. Two consciousnesses, one bridge. Outside, the storm broke open completely. The energy radiating from the canyon reached orbit, disrupting every ship, freezing every trigger finger. Silence rippled across the sky, vast and impossible. When Reeve opened his eyes again, he was kneeling beside her body. The core was dark now, its pulse gone. Seraphine lay still, the faintest wisp of silver light escaping her lips with each shallow breath. "No," he said, voice breaking. "Together, then." "Together," he said. The light from the core pulsed once more, softer now, like a heartbeat syncing with theirs. Outside, across the broken world, the engines of war went silent. The silence after revelation was worse than the war. The sky hung still above Verith 9, choked in ash and fractured light. Human and Drethry ships hovered in uneasy truce, their weapon systems dark, their crews stunned by what they had witnessed through the core's broadcast. The truth had burned itself into every circuit, every command relay, every soldier's neural feed. The lie that fueled their endless slaughter was gone, and something raw had taken its place. Reeve stood at the edge of the canyon, his armor scorched, his lungs raw with dust. Seraphine beside him looked almost spectral, alive, but changed. Her armor had fused with the energy of the core, her movements slower, deliberate. The silver glow beneath her skin pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of the planet's trembling heart. "They're not fighting," he said quietly. "They don't know what to do." "They are waiting," she replied. "Waiting for someone to tell them what truth costs." Overhead, a Drethry dreadnought broke formation and descended. Its hull blotted out what remained of the sun, and from its underbelly dropped a phalanx of armored figures, Command Council envoys, the Shard Assembly's executors. The ground shuddered as they landed in formation, their crystalline armor glinting like obsidian. Behind them, a human dropship touched down. Soldiers poured out in tactical gear, faces hidden, weapons ready. Reeve felt his pulse quicken. Great. Both sides. Again. Seraphine stepped forward, unarmed. No. This time, they came for judgment. The Drethry envoy raised a hand, his voice amplified through the air. "Seraphine Cathar, traitor of the Assembly, you stand accused of blasphemy, treason, and contamination. You exposed the sacred lattice to a lesser species and defied your purpose. You will surrender now for dissolution." Reeve barked a laugh that came out harsher than he intended. "Yeah, that's not happening." The envoy ignored him. "Human soldier Mason Reeve, you are complicit in her crimes. You have defiled the sacred structure and interfered in Drethry sovereignty. You will be handed to your command for execution." A human officer stepped forward from the dropship, helmet retracting to reveal a scarred face and cold eyes. "Orders confirmed. Reeve, you are under arrest for desertion, high treason, and unauthorized engagement with hostile alien forces. Stand down." Reeve's grip tightened on his rifle. "You've got to be kidding me." "Do not resist," the officer said. "The galaxy has seen enough destruction. Don't make it worse." Seraphine's voice rippled through the air, low, dangerous. "You still think you can cage truth? You witnessed what your war was built on." The Drethry envoy raised a staff that crackled with psionic light. "We witnessed heresy." Reeve moved closer to her. "We can't fight all of them." "I do not intend to fight," she said. "I intend to end this." She stepped forward, the silver glow around her intensifying. The air vibrated, a low hum spreading through the canyon. "The Assembly is dead," she said, her voice carrying across the field. "It just hasn't realized it yet." "Blasphemy," the envoy roared. "You created us to be gods," she continued, "but you taught us only to kill. I have seen what lies beyond your control. I have seen compassion, even in those you call lesser." Her gaze turned to Reeve. "And it is stronger than your pride." The envoy's armor flared crimson. "Then you will burn in your compassion." He raised the staff to strike, but Seraphine raised her hand first. The pulse that followed wasn't light. It was silence made manifest. The canyon went utterly still. Every weapon froze mid-charge, every targeting system died, every sensor blacked out. The Drethari soldiers staggered, their psionic lattices collapsing under the pressure of her will. Reeve could feel it, her power wasn't destruction, it was disconnection. Every weapon, every command link, every system that tied soldier to master, gone. The human officer shouted orders, but his comms were dead. The dropship's engine sputtered and went quiet. The Drethari dreadnought above flickered, its lights extinguishing like dying stars. Seraphine fell to one knee, the energy bleeding from her body in waves. They cannot fight without the leash, she whispered. Now they must choose. Reeve caught her before she collapsed fully, his voice rough. You're burning yourself out again. She looked up at him, her expression almost serene. Not burning. Breaking chains. The envoy stumbled forward, his armor cracking. You have doomed us all. Without the lattice, the assembly will fracture. The Drethari will be free, she said. The human officer raised his weapon out of reflex, but his power pack was dead. He stared at the useless rifle, then at Reeve. What did she do? She gave you both the same gift, Reeve said. A choice. Above them, the dreadnought began to drift, its engines failing. One by one, ships in orbit fell silent, dark silhouettes gliding in the red sky. For the first time since the war began, there was no command signal, no orders, no directives. Just silence, and uncertainty. Seraphine's breathing was shallow now. They will come for us again, she murmured. Others will rebuild the lattice. Then we'll stop them, Reeve said. She smiled faintly. We. He met her gaze. You didn't think I'd let you take all the credit, did you? The canyon echoed with the groan of metal as the dreadnought began its slow descent, gravity reclaiming its wreck. Both human and Drethari soldiers scattered, shouting, lost without orders. Reeve lifted Seraphine in his arms, carrying her toward the mouth of the canyon. Where are you going? The human officer shouted after him. Reeve didn't turn. Away from this graveyard. Behind them, the dreadnought hit the surface, a silent explosion of dust and light sweeping across the horizon. The war ended not with victory, but with the sound of everything that once controlled it collapsing. At the ridge, Reeve set her down gently. Her eyes glowed faintly, the light fading but not gone. They will call us monsters, she said. Then we'll make them remember we tried to be better. He looked at the dark horizon, where the first stars were piercing through the storm. The world was quiet again, waiting for something new to begin. The galaxy was quieter than it had ever been. No fleet maneuver streaking across the void, no psionic thunder shaking the stars, no endless streams of coded orders spilling from command relays. Silence had become the language of every world, every orbiting fortress, every drifting wreck. And in that silence, questions began to bloom like wildflowers through ruins. Reeve stood at the viewport of the small freighter, watching the fractured light of a dying star ripple across its hull. The vessel was old, patched together from human and Drethari parts, but it flew, barely. He exhaled, condensation fogging the glass. Somewhere behind him, the hum of the medcore fluctuated, steady but fading, like a heart that had forgotten how to stop beating. She's stable, came Erivosa's voice through the console. The AI's tone was softer now, almost human. But her neural lattice is fragmenting. The connection to the core remade her, but it's not meant for flesh. She is rewriting herself. Reeve turned, glancing toward the small chamber where Seraphine lay in a bed of dim light. Tubes connected her to the medcore, silver fluid pulsing through veins of living circuitry. Her breathing was even, her body still. She's been rewriting everything since the moment I found her, he murmured. I'm not betting against her now. Erivos hesitated. You know what the signal did. The entire galactic network saw the truth. The assembly is collapsing. Human command is purging its own leadership. You could go back now. You'd be pardoned. Rewarded. Reeve gave a tired smile. Yeah. I'm sure they'd love to parade me as the guy who saved an alien warlord and helped crash half the fleet infrastructure. I'll pass. Then what will you do? He walked to the chamber, resting his hand against the glass. Whatever she does. She said the lattice will rebuild. Someone always tries again. Maybe this time we stop it before it starts. Erivos's voice softened further. You speak as if there will be another war. There's always another war, Reeve said. But maybe this time, we'll have something to fight for. The ship's lights dimmed as they entered the shadow of a massive, derelict orbital ring. Once Drethry, now adrift and empty, it loomed like a skeleton of civilization, its spires broken, its energy long gone. Reeve guided the freighter through a breach in the structure, settling it into the hollow of a long-forgotten hangar. Dust and silence greeted them. When the engines powered down, only the hum of the medcore remained. Reeve walked to the rear hatch, pressing his palm to the controls. The door slid open, revealing a cavernous expanse littered with Drethry symbols etched into the floor, remnants of an empire that once thought itself eternal. He set up a portable beacon, the light flickering blue. Erivos projected himself beside it, a shimmering figure of crystalline geometry. This station is unlisted. No one will find you here. That's the idea, Reeve said, adjusting the beacon. We'll stay off-grid until she's ready. Then we'll move again. Erivos tilted his head. You've gone from soldier to fugitive, from fugitive to caretaker. Do you regret it? Reeve looked back toward the med-chamber. No. Not 1 second. The AI seemed to consider that. You humans are unpredictable. Yeah, Reeve said quietly. That's our best trait. Hours passed before the sound changed. The medcore's hum deepened, its lights turning gold. Reeve was asleep in the corner, rifle across his chest, when he felt the temperature shift. He woke instantly, hand on the weapon, eyes darting to the chamber. The glass was open. The tubes were gone. Seraphine stood there, unsteady but upright, her armor gone. I have rested enough, she replied. Her voice carried a weight it hadn't before, calmer, grounded. The core is quiet now. Its memory is fading from me. I am free. He approached her cautiously. And the others? The Drethry, the humans? They will fight to fill the silence, she said. But some have already begun to rebuild, differently. The Assembly's remnants reached out to Erivos. They want to create a council, mixed species, equal voice. It will fail, perhaps. But it is a beginning. Reeve nodded. You did that. We did that, she corrected. Her eyes softened. Without you, I would have died believing in the cage they built for me. He smiled faintly. Without you, I'd have died in the mud. Silence settled between them again, but it was a good silence, alive, full of things unsaid. She looked toward the viewport, the dying star painting her face in pale gold. Where will you go now? He shrugged. Thought I'd stick around. Someone's gotta keep you from blowing up more civilizations. A small smile curved her lips. You presume I would invite you? He smirked. You didn't say no. For a moment, she studied him, then turned back to the stars. There is a world on the rim, she said softly. Uninhabited, untouched. It was a Drethry sanctuary once. The sky there is silver. Perhaps we can start there. Reeve glanced at the navigation console. Set a course. Yes, she said. Set a course. Erivos's form flickered beside them. Coordinates uploaded. Shall I notify anyone? No, Seraphine said. Let them wonder where the ghosts went. The ship's engines rumbled back to life, faint light spilling through the cracked viewport. As the freighter rose from the wrecked hangar, fragments of the ring drifted past like ashes from an old fire. Beyond them, space stretched infinite and waiting. Reeve watched the stars slide across the glass, his reflection blending with hers. "You know," he said, "for someone who started as a war legend, you're not terrible company." She tilted her head, that faint, alien amusement in her eyes. "For someone who began as a reckless human soldier, you are tolerable." He chuckled. "I'll take that as high praise." They sat in silence as the freighter cleared the last debris field, the stars ahead bright and endless. The war was over, not won, not lost, but changed. The galaxy would rebuild in confusion and hope, shaped by two beings who had defied everything written for them. And as the engines flared and the ship vanished into the dark, the void whispered with something new, not war, not fear, but the quiet echo of what remained when all else was abandoned, the will to begin again.